beautiful lady, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. Probably for most of you, I can't see many white heads, for most of you, you've known no other monarch than the Queen. 70 years on the throne is a long time. I was born a Georgian. My father was a Victorian. Nobody in our village had a TV in those days, and I've got no memories of the Queen's coronation. The war was just over, and we still had food rationing, and we had hand-me-down clothes, and in our parish we used to get crates delivered of concentrated orange juice for all the children, so that when you were young, Robert, you didn't get scurvy from lack of food. You had to have vitamin C. But we had a new young queen, and the whole world was changing. We soon had the swinging 60s, and another 5 decades followed. We had the Cold War, we had men on the moon, we had computers, the internet, and now we have climate change. Regardless of whether you are a monarchist or a republican, this lady deserves our greatest respect. I don't think any one of us could have done such a good job as she did. And now she's gone. There are 2 milestones in your life on the way to becoming an adult. One is when you first have children of your own, and the other is when you lose your parents. Suddenly, you have to be the one who's responsible. You become an adult. The Queen was like a mother to us, unobtrusive but always there, a reassuring support in times of trouble. She had her own share of family difficulties, but throughout her own personal trials, she maintained a dignity and steadfastness as monarch to her country and the Commonwealth. She always had the long view and the welfare of her people and country at heart. She didn't have to face the transient of an electoral term like politicians do, nor did she have any real power. But she was always there, and on our side. Politicians, with their wheezy avoidance of answering the difficult questions, met their match with our Queen. She was not afraid to say to them what needed saying. Oh, to be a fly on the wall when Prime Ministers had to face their weekly audiences with her, like naughty schoolboys outside the headmaster's office. I'm sure there were many times when the politicians were grateful that their private conversations were not recorded on Hansard. Literally 48 hours before she died, and barely able to stand, the Queen was doing her duty. She saw out Boris and welcomed in the new Prime Minister, Elizabeth Truss, and she continued her duties for 36 years after she could have actually retired. But when not on royal duties, she was a countrywoman, keen on her horses, her dogs, and the land itself. I attended all the Queen's Horses event at Windsor in 2012, celebrating her Diamond Jubilee, and to see all those horses from different disciplines going through their paces, to the finale of the King's Troop pulling the gun carriages, that was enough to bring tears to your eyes. Other countries can keep their tin pot presidents who come and go and live only for the next election. We have in roots to our past and to our countryside. We take our sport seriously, but also with a twinkle and a smile. And we know only too well those two impostors, triumph and disaster. And we treat them both the same. And you'll see some this afternoon in the open hunt race. The Queen wasn't a falconer, and I never knew her personally. But she and her family enjoyed all country sports, and she was thrilled when His Royal Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, now President of the United Arab Emirates, presented her with a white falcon for her jubilee. Bred at Sheikh Mohammed's stud in UK, the Queen named him Diamond, and he was returned to us together with other royal falcons for breeding. Diamond too is now part of her history, and I've brought him here today for you to see. Our new monarch, King Charles III, is also a countryman, keen on our country sports and farming, as well as the wider issues of conservation, environment and heritage. I've had various dealings with him on falconry and cultural issues. When we were preparing the submission to UNESCO 15 years ago, the question naturally came up, why can't Britain be included? After all, falconry has been practiced in UK for many years. 24 other countries are inscribed. Why not us? Our hawking grounds in the north have a statue of a falconer dated 670 AD. That's even before John Dixon was born. 1300 years. It was before even England was established as a country. Falconry is deeply embedded in our culture. So I wrote to the Minister for Culture, Jeremy Hunt, MP, to inquire why UK has not signed the UNESCO Convention. He wriggled out of it by claiming that one cannot define intangible cultural heritage, but UNESCO has actually already done that. What happened was, and I talked to Prince Charles about this, while Britain was busy promoting a multicultural society, this was done at the expense of our own indigenous culture. It's our habit in Britain to understate ourselves. One shouldn't blow one's own trumpet. That's how we were brought up. So while politicians celebrated other ethnic groups and cultures, our own received little recognition. Instead it became a kicking boy for politicians in Westminster, scoring points against one another. The Hunting Act was never about hunting itself, it was about game playing with the MPs. And the Queen was given no option but to give royal assent to that bill. Since the Act was passed in 2005, hunting has continued as before, and it has been the biggest and longest civil disobedience in the entire Queen's reign. One thing that struck me about UNESCO was that while history is about the past, heritage is about the future. It's living culture that we pass on to the next generation, like a baton. Nor is it something fossilized and static, but rather it must continue to evolve. The racing you see here at Vowley isn't falconry as such. Falconry is a hunting sport, but it engages with most of the cultural skills that you need to be a good falconer. And it's a way to engage the younger generation. Hi guys. At some of the race meetings here at Vowley, the early ones, I've been the only one with white hair. And that's as it should be. Let's welcome the young fresh blood, new ideas. The best way to preserve our past is to embrace the future. We must embrace change. It's a changing world. This little celebration today to remember the Queen is not about religion or race or culture. More than 80 countries practice falconry. It transcends the religions and races and culture. Actually, it's older than any of the received religions. Our ancestors were hawking long before Buddhism or Christianity or Islam. And it requires huge daily personal commitment on behalf of its practitioners. It's a form of religion on its own. So we're in the process of getting falconry recognised as a protected belief. Now, a protected belief is a legal category. It gives its adherents certain rights to continue their practices and their beliefs. Google it when you get home. That's a protected belief. Falconry is under threat as never before. Most threats are peripheral. It's like death by 1,000 cuts. We lose quarry licenses. Mountain hares become protected. Pest licenses become more and more restricted. Often the changes aren't aimed at us at all. We're just collateral damage because we're so small. The Welsh Government has come out against shooting as a leisure activity. And Labour plan to do the same when they become in government again, which they will do at some point. And that would be most easily implemented by banning the rearing and release of game birds, and that would affect us as falconers. It's happened already in many Western European countries. Who would have thought that you need a license to catch a crow or a pigeon as if they were endangered species? It's ridiculous. As Britain becomes more and more urbanised and as social media can be used to sway and rally the public and their opinion, without any first-hand knowledge, country voices get drowned out. So for falconry to continue in any recognisable form, we must be cohesive and we must support one another. This means supporting our representatives on the hawk board and clubs who are at the battlefront dealing with the government departments and the media. Politics, sadly, and I was naive when I was young, politics is not evidence-led. I'm a biologist. I used to think they believed the science. No. It simply follows perceived public opinions, which means that while some minorities receive headline status, others like ours get trodden on. It's all right, I'm getting near the end. Often we're our own worst enemies, airing our trivial grievances before one another on the social media, rather than creating a unifying influence. So, before you go and press the post button on your Instagram or forum or whatever it is, ask yourself, am I making a positive contribution to falconry? Or am I just being negative, a disparaging doom and gloom merchant? Tomorrow is the Queen's funeral. It's the end of an era, and it's the beginning of a new one. I'd like to say thank you to the Queen for all the years of steadfast service she's given us, and she's set an example for all of us to follow. So I say God save the Queen.
Yeah.
Thank you.
God save the Queen.
Thank you very much, Nick. Now, on behalf of the IAF, I would like to pass you over to Mark Upton. Would you like me to hold your speech, sir?
Yes, please.
No problem at all. So, as I say, Mark is